Captain Slog, star date 0819. These are the voyages of the starship and... This isn't a starship, is it? It's a roller coaster. Sorry about that. Do you remember when you were a kid? Certainly if you're of a certain age like me, getting on towards 50, I'm not going to give the game away. Our weekends would be spent full of wonder. We would kind of grab our pocket money or maybe our money from our paper round and we'd try and make the most of the weekend, and that would start with doing something that kids these days don't really seem to do. We'd go outside.
Captain, I don't think she can take it anymore. You've got to get somebody over from the infirmary and into the engine room to build the shields up, or else she's gonna blow.
So there I'd be, Saturday morning. I'd got a pocket full of hard-earned cash from my paper round. I'd jump on my bike and I'd cycle over to my best friend Richard's house, and then we'd do exactly the same thing. We'd head down into the local town centre. We'd go to the local W.H. Smith's, and we'd do something that just doesn't seem to happen so much these days. We'd buy books. The books that I really liked were the magical Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson fighting fantasy books. You know, we're all aware of them. You choose your own adventure books. So why am I talking about adventure books when I'm talking about a purely solitaire game, which is Deep Space D-6? So here I am, that strange breed of board gamer, the solo board gamer. We generally play our games on our own. Admittedly, you know, I have played games with other people and will continue to do so, but primarily I'm a solo board gamer. So why am I outside? I'm talking about books back in the 80s. Well, those books, those fighting fantasy books, gave me an escape at the time. Those were a way to deal with all the rigours of adolescence and being a teenager. They also were social in their aspect as well, as the fact that me and my friends would swap books after we'd played them. So they gave me a great amount of escape and allowed me to interact with other people and gave me a world that was a little bit further away from the world I was in. And you know what? Deep Space D6 kind of does the same thing.
Oh, Master. The orange-skinned aliens from the Trooper are trying to destroy us. Please help us. You are our only hope.
So, from the moment that you lay your hands on your copy of Deep Space D6, you are instantly transported back to those heady adolescent days, picking a fighting fantasy book up from W.H. Smith's, be it Death Trap Dungeon or whatever. And look at the box art, look at the cover on there. It just screams adventure inside this tiny little box. And for such a small game, and a relatively inexpensive game, you can pick this up for just over £20, the box is just a work of art. It screams quality. There's the picture on the front. There's the fact that it looks like a book. You know, this wouldn't be out of place on somebody's library shelves. You could knock over a copy of the King James Bible and put this in its place. On the back there is the blurb, and the blurb is practically meaningless. It really doesn't mean anything. It tells you about that you are some captain of some starship in some wherever doing. It doesn't really matter. It's almost irrelevant to the experience that you're going to have when you open the box. And certainly, I think that the picture on the box almost tells enough. Now, the box itself has one really, really important feature, something that really, really, really impressed me. For such a small box on an inexpensive game, magnetic flaps. So we're going to talk about the contents now. Excuse me. So we're going to talk about the contents of Okay, so I've talked enough about the box and how much it evokes these feelings for me. Let's have a look inside the box. And the very first thing that's going to happen once you open that wonderful magnetic flap and open the box itself is you're going to be hit by this wall of monochrome. To say that they kind of push the boat out on the printing experience inside the box is potentially kind of pushing it a little bit. What you get is some very basic printed instructions and The rulebook itself kind of leaves a little bit to be desired. Fortunately, it's not that much of a difficult game to learn. You get a number of cards, and these cards represent the threats that are going to come at your ship, either internal or external. As you can see, they're basic, they're perfunctory, but, you know, the game itself potentially is strong enough to carry through that. You do get these rather wonderful dice, and these dice each have a different face, and they will represent your actions when you are fighting the big bads of the alien world, the ships, the pirates that are coming out to take you over. There's a standard D-6 and a couple of markers. And also we do get, now this is a great thing, is you get 1, 2, 3, 4 different player boards, and each of these boards represents a different ship, and each ship has different strengths and different weaknesses and a level of complexity added there as well. What you also get the back on each of these player boards and these different ships is a little bit of detail about the ship itself and how that ship particularly plays different and plays uniquely to the rest of it. So as you can see, the components themselves, they're okay, you know, and in reality, I don't think the game really needs more than this. We got everything that we need here. Bear in mind, this is a relatively quick, relatively inexpensive, pick up and play solitaire game. Despite a bit of work that could have been done on that rule book, I think these components are pretty good. So let's have a look at the setup now. So, as you would expect from a game that is a solitaire game and plays in about 20 minutes, what you don't want is a game that takes a lot of time to set up. And you could literally set this up within humming a couple of bars of the Imperial March from Star Wars. In fact, let's give that a go. Dum 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 da dum dum da dum 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 da dum dum da dum da da dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 da. And there we go. That is literally the setup. No time whatsoever. Quicker than you can have a Wii, and absolutely perfect for a solo game. Now, let's go into the game itself.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Alright. Cheers. Bye.
Yes, see you.
You see, at its heart, Deep Space D6 is a relatively light worker placement game. As you go through the 6 stages of each round, what you're going to do is you're going to get your available dice, which are effectively your crew members. You're going to roll those, you're going to assign them to certain tasks, and those tasks can be retrieving somebody from the infirmary, or they can be blasting aliens out of the sky, or they can literally be scanning for threats. Once you've assigned them, you're going to draw another threat card, and these threats will build up progressively throughout the game, and then you're going to roll the threat dice, which will then activate whichever threats are, as you go from the left down, top to bottom, then the right hand down, top to bottom, left to right. You'll activate threats in turn. So as you can see from here, what's happened is I need to send a unit to the infirmary. What that does, takes one of my available crew, sticks them in that infirmary, which means I have less dice to roll the next go. And my dice, what I'll do is I'll roll them. Again, I'll shoot a big bad. I maybe build my shields up. I can't do anything with that one in this particular go because I've used my dice. Draw another threat, and then roll a threat again. And there we go. That's a 6, and what that means is actually nothing activates there for me. But what does happen as you go through the game is you sometimes get progressively less dice, so your capacity to actually handle the threats decreases on a round by round basis. You can get the dice back, and then what the actual number of threats will just keep mounting, and the number of baddies will keep going up. You start playing this real balancing act over whether you actually attack the space pirates, or whether you want to use your dice to get people back from the infirmary so that you have more dice the next go. And the aim of the game is to work through this threat deck here. Once you've depleted this threat deck and you've got rid of all the threats, the internal and the external threats, and they've all moved across to here, you will then activate the game's big bad, which is the Ouroboros. And here you can see there are 6 cards and they're all clearly identified by the Ouroboros symbol on there. And what happens is when you depleted that, these Ouroboros cards come into play, and the aim is then to defeat the Ouroboros. If you defeat him, you have won the game. However, what invariably happens before you get to that stage is that you're going to get overwhelmed by these internal and external threats, and you're going to die a horrible fiery space death. Fire in space, I'm not too sure how that works. But yeah, so effectively you're going to get overrun many times before you actually get through this threat deck here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a couple of rounds of the game itself. You'll see how easy it is to do, how easy it is to play, and then we'll move on to final thoughts. So what I've done is I've set the board up, and we are partway through a game. We've already eliminated these internal and external threats, and this is the remainder of the threat deck here. I have 1 threat scanned already, so that die is locked in there. My shields and my hull are at full, and I have 1 crew member in the infirmary. There are 2 threat attacks at the moment. 1 has already been knocked down by 1. So I have an assault cruiser, which if I rolled a 4 or a 5 would knock 2 off my hull. And I also have a hijacker, which if I rolled a 4 or a 5, coincidentally, would also knock 2 off my hull. He's already taken a laser hit, so he's down. Instead of a 4, he's at a 3. So here's what we're going to do. We'll go through in order. So the first thing it says here is roll all available crew dice and immediately lock in any scan threats. Because I have 2 that are already locked in, 1 in the infirmary, 1 in the scan threat, out of my 6 dice, I only have 4 available at the moment. So let's roll those and see what happens. Okay. So what you then do then is if the scanners are full, draw a new threat and then return. So if I'd got 2 in there and I'd rolled another scan threat here, I would put all of those dice into there and I'd immediately draw a threat. Then it says to assign crew to stations and missions. So each die face marries up to one of the areas on the ship, and as you know we've chosen the Halcyon here. So I have 2 of those and 2 of those. Now what these do here is these would allow me to change the face of any die. So I could effectively get any other action out of these here. So what I'm going to do is first of all I'm going to use one of those and change this die face to a laser blast. What that will allow me to do is allow me to knock him down a further one there. So that's one of those already used. The other one I'm going to leave spare because what I want to do with this is I want to return this from the threats here back into my return, which means I get an extra die roll. Next go. So that is effectively it. I've assigned my crew members. I had 1 member I couldn't use. I changed 1 die face to a laser blast, and I retrieved a crew member. I retrieved a die from the threat here. So now I'm going to draw another threat. Let's see where this goes. This goes as a number 2. And remember, you place them kind of left to right, and that's how you work through them. And that's another 2 there. And that's a 3 and a 6. At the moment, if I draw a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6, or if I roll a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 on this threat phase, then I'm going to get pretty much battered here right now. So here we go. It says here, roll threat die and resolve matching threats. I've rolled 3. So I have no internal threats. We're going to work external threats, top to bottom, left to right. First one, 4 and a 5, nothing there, thankfully. Second one, 4 and a 5, nothing there, thankfully it's a 3. The third one, if I rolled a 3 or a 6, it's -2 to hull. What happens is, when you get any damage, typically it would affect your shields first, unless the card specifically states that it ignores the shields, and then you move straight to hull. So I will lose 2 on my shields there. So when these are depleted and this is depleted, that's game over for me. But as you can see, I'm still in a fairly healthy position. So that is 1 round. Now it says, oh no, final stage, sorry, gather all available crew. There's the 1 I returned. There's the 2 I've used. That one there and that one there. That gives me out of 6 dice. I now have 5 that I could roll. What's going to happen here is we're going to go back to the first stage, and let's see what happens with these crew members now. Oh, so instantly 2 of them are locked in there. I also get a green, I can change a face, and I get that. So I'm going to use this one to return one of these threats, which means I won't trip over another threat, hopefully, on the next go. This one again, I don't want to change the face of any. What this does in the green with the green one here is it allows me to either recharge my shield, so I can move them all the way back up, or on the Halcyon, I can actually use it as a stasis beam, which would neutralize one of these effects. And you know what? That's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to put that on there, because if it didn't, if I rolled a 4 or a 5 next go, and what would happen is I would actually lose 4. I'd lose 2 for that and 2 for that. If I roll a 4 or a 5 on the threats on this go, that means I will unloose 2. So that is, there we go, we've gone stage 1, we've rolled everything, we've immediately assigned a threat there, we've assigned the crew to their various missions, and now we're going to draw another threat card. Let's see what we got. It's a 3. As you can see, if I roll 1, 2, 3, 4 or a 5 there, that's a -1 damage. So now we're going to move to the rolling the threat die, and it's a 4. Thankfully, I've got my stasis beam on there. So top to bottom, left to right, as I say. First one here, that is a 4, that's a 4 there, I'm down -2, so my shields are depleted. Then, we've got a 4 here, I've rolled a 4, that means I also lose a further 1, so I'm down from 8 to 7. Had I not put the stasis beam on there, I would lose another 2, which would have taken me down to 5, and as you can see there, there's a 3 or a 6 roll there, so that's nothing. Wow, okay, so I've gone from a relatively healthy position in just a couple of rounds to now potentially being overwhelmed. I literally have 7 hull left. These bad guys are building up. I didn't roll any laser hits. You know what, I know I said I was going to do a couple of rounds. Let's go in for a 3rd round here. So let's remove that. First thing we're going to do is gather all available crew members. Because I have 1 threat locked, because I have 1 in the infirmary, that means that mine are now down to 4 rather than 6. So let's try this one. Okay, so I can repair my hull. I can get either a unit back from being locked or a unit from the infirmary, and I can either recharge my shields or I can do a stasis beam here. So I think the first thing we're going to do is obviously repair the hull. And as you can see, again here on repair hull, it's 1 for the first dice, pretty much like the laser beams, and then 2 for each subsequent dice there. That would give me 3. I've only got 1 to go up, so in reality I'm going to lose the power of one of those dice. This allows me to return either a threat from the locked threats there or from the infirmary. Again, I'm going to do that, so that means next go I go back to 5 dice as long as nothing gets locked. And here I could recharge my beams, or again I could use my stasis. So there we go, we're going to use my stasis, I'm going to lock that one out again. But because I drew no lasers then, because I couldn't fire my lasers then, as you can see, these threats, they're only going to get, I'm going to draw another threat in a moment, they're only going to get worse. I need to start locking them down, but I haven't had any laser blasts. So the next thing we do is draw another threat card. Okay, and this is an internal threat. So this is denoted by the fact that there is no number against it there. So if it's, that means that if there's no number, it goes onto the left-hand side of the board. It's internal, it's happening within the ship itself. So if I draw a 1, 2 or a 3, I immediately have to send a unit to the infirmary. Okay, so let's try the roll, see what happens. It's a 3. So now we have internal and external threats. What we do is we work left-hand side first, top to bottom, then the right-hand side, top to bottom, left to right. So the first thing we do is, see there, I've rolled a 3, there's the 3 on there, so send a unit to the infirmary. So this threat unit, which would have been returned to me the very next go, automatically I'm going to send to the infirmary there. Then we go over to the external threat side. There's 4 or 5 on the number 4 there, thankfully nothing there. There's the 3, which means another 1 damage to the hull. So whatever repairs I had are done. And there we go. That one's in stasis, thankfully. But here, this one here is a further 2 damage to the hull. 1, 2. Wow, okay. So my position from where I thought I was getting better has actually got worse. I'm back down to 4 dice. I didn't manage to do anything to any of these guys here. I have no shields. I have a hull at 5. And the threats keep mounting. So as you can see, the game plays very, 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 very easily. What will happen is I will continue to collect my dice. I will continue to roll and assign them. And I can rebuild things, I can fire on things, and I will continue to draw threats, which will be placed accordingly. And then I will roll for the threats, and invariably what will happen is either I'm going to die a horrible death or I'm going to win. Very, very, very straightforward. The win conditions are defeat the entirety of the deck, those decks and that Ouroboros there. The lose conditions are shields get to 0, that gets to 0, or you cannot roll any dice because it is effective. It is possible that all your dice could be in the infirmary. If that's the case, you have no crew left, you're done for. And that's the simplicity of the game. That is the very essence of a beautiful solitaire game.
Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
So, final thoughts for Deep Space D6, and if you watch the video this far, then you'll probably be able to tell I really kind of like this game. Thing is, I can't recommend it for everybody. I think a lot of people will find it way too light and worry about the amount of replayability that's in the box itself. However, for me, as a purely solitaire game, something that comes in a relatively inexpensive package, you know, it works a lot for me. It's something I can chuck in my suitcase when I go travelling for work. It'll pass kind of 30 minutes at night, or an hour if you play it a couple of times on the trot. You may worry about the replayability in there. Now, you can increase the difficulty by removing what's called the Don't Panic cards that are in the deck, and they effectively stop actions happening. And don't forget, there's the 4 different player boards. Each of them play very, very differently, which add, again, an element of variability on there. There is also an expansion that you can get at the moment, which is Deep Space D6 The Endless. I've not actually tried that yet, but again, when I do try it, I'm sure it will add some more replayability on there. And if you go on Board Game Geek, you can download the print and play campaign for Deep Space D6, which again will add longer playtime to it there for people looking for a deeper experience. So overall, I do really like this game. It suits a certain type of solitaire gamer. It may not be for everybody, but you know what? If you've got a spare 20 odd quid lying around and you're wondering what you could do with it, you could do far worse than pick up a copy of Deep Space D6 by Tau Leader Games. Until next time, this has been Not Board Gaming.
Oh, it's on now, wife.
Is it on?
It's on, wife.
It's on?
It's on, isn't it? Say hello, wife.
Hello.
Yeah. That's why I solo game.
That's Deep Space.
Wow, so there we go. The very first video for the brand new solo board gaming YouTube channel, Not Board Gaming. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching that as much as I enjoyed making that. If you did, then please like and subscribe to Not Board Gaming below, and also leave your comments. I really want to know what I can do better, different, what you guys are looking for as the channel progresses. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Not Board Gaming. That's always B-O-R-E-D. And let's keep the discussions going there. So there will be more videos coming, more reviews, unboxings, discussions on solo board gaming. So until next time, remember, if you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourself. Till next time, bye-bye.